This is the hour. The Steven Hour. We are back with another 007 movie review. Today's movie, we're reviewing the 1967 film, You Only Live Twice. Now, as usual, let's quickly get into the brief background about the film. Now, at this point in the James Bond franchise, the Bond craze had hit all-time high. After the release of Thunderball, which was at the time the most commercially successful film, you know, full of Bond was everywhere. It was huge. And also this year they had another Bond film, although not an Eon one, called Casino Royale, released in 1967, and was like one of those unofficial Bond films, and was an over-the-top spoof. And honestly, I've seen it. It's not that great. I highly recommend you don't watch it. And who knows, maybe later I might do a review about it. Now, originally the next film was planned to be on Her Majesty's Secret Service, because in the books there was this trilogy that happened, the Blofeld trilogy. There was Thunderball, On Her Majesty's, and You Only Live Twice. But due to filming, they couldn't do On Her Majesty's because the majority of the thing takes place in Switzerland. So instead they did You Only Live Twice, which largely took place in Japan, and Bond was huge there. It was also, there was a lot of production problems happening behind the scenes, mostly with Sean Connery by this time fed up with being James Bond and said that this would be his last film. Of course, that would turn out to be a bit inaccurate, but we'll get to that when we reach the part in the review. As a result, the film was released in 1967 and is sort of like a film where people aren't really sure what to make about it, whether it's considered a classic, one of the worst films in the series, or arguably an underrated gem. So how do I personally feel about this film? Well, let's quickly get into it. The cast for this film relatively remains the same. We have Sean Connery in the role of James Bond. We also have, finally, Blofeld's famous reveal, played on, finally, an actor. We actually get to see the actor's face, and, and it was Telly Savalas. Now, Telly Savalas didn't play, well, not Telly Savalas, sorry, Donald Pleasence plays Blofeld in this film. Now, he didn't play Blofeld in Thunderball and From Russia With Love, but this would be the version of the character that everyone knows. It's there with the haunting face, the scar on his eye, the menace, the voice, and just those eyes. And of course, it's just so iconic. It's been parodied so many times, such as the Austin Powers franchise, where, we have Dr. Evil. The Bond girls here in this film, we have Mia Hammer, sorry if that name's been pronounced wrong, as Kissy Suzuki, and Akio Wakasabi, sorry if that name's been pronounced wrong, as Aki, and essentially sort of like play the role of being both the Bond girls in this film. I'll get to that when we get more into the plot. We also have Bond ally Tanaka, or Tiger Tanaka, played by Tetsuro Tamba. And I really find he's really a fun and interesting ally. One of these days I want to do a top 10 Bond allies, as I find that to be, a really list that I think no one's really ever done. We also have Helga Brunt, portrayed by Caria Dor. Basically, she is a Fiona Volpe 2.0, but is kind of bland to be honest, and I really wish they just could have had a character that didn't look so much like, was meant to be a 2.0 type thing, which we'll get to that later in the cast for another character. We also have Mr. Ozotto as Tura Shimad, basically a working as a member of Spectre. Well, not a full member of Spectre, more of an associate with Spectre. Rounding out the cast, we have the usual Bernard Lee as M, Lois Maxwell as Moneypenny, and and Desmond Llewellyn as Q, all returning. We also here have Charles Gray as a Bond contact, Henderson, a very fun and quite memorable role. Of course, he's known for the Rocky Horror Picture Show with It's Just a Jump to the Left. Of course, we all know him from that. We also here have Hans, played by Ronald Rich, basically basically a tall Russian blonde hair villain, person. And for me, he's like, these characters keep reminding me of Red Grant. They just do that, but they have no character to them at all, which I don't know. It just doesn't. I don't know. It just doesn't really work with me as well. And once again, we have another wrestler again. This ain't the first time, where a Bond henchman, plays a sort of henchman type role. And the person in question is Peter Marvey. Hopefully that name's pronounced right. And he has this very short, brief fight scene. But I really kind of like him, and I wish he was like the true main henchman of the movie. I just find it he has so much character, and I wish he was the main henchman and not Hans. Hans is just so average. He at least has some character and stands out. Overall, that's really the main important cast, and I'll get to that more, and of course we'll get to more of this later in the review. Now, the movie begins, of course, with the traditional Bond gun barrel. And after that, we are then shown a picture in space. Again, this movie doesn't really adapt fully well from the novel, whilst others have been quite faithful adaptations. Here, this is the first time where they loosely adapted. Here, there is an American space shuttle up in space, but then are captured by a mysterious spacecraft and is taken away, resulting in the death of one of the astronauts. And death of one of the astronauts, while one is captured along with the spacecraft. This then causes a sort of outbreak between both the Americans, as it was American spacecrafts, and the Russians, as the Americans are blaming the Russians for capturing it, but the Russian says it's not us. Again, I like how it takes a bit of the Cold War, understand the Cold War and the tensions between the two, and the British are of course in between, saying that they don't agree, and find that it actually came from Japan, and of course they have their best man Bond working on it. Here we find Bond in bed with a beautiful girl. Just as soon as he says that we have our best man working on it, we then of course get to this moment where Bond is essentially killed when this woman gets out of bed, presses a button, resulting in the bed flipping up into a wall. Two guys come in, shoot up the bed, and leave the room. Police then come, find Bond's body, and presume him dead. Okay, a pretty interesting opening, I must admit. Though something about it just doesn't I don't know. It's a good opening, and it's pretty good, I admit it. But something about it just feels off for me. But I can't deny that the idea of Bond being killed is something they did early in the films, but I think by this point it kind of got old for me to do the Bond getting killed. So I'm very glad that by this point they stopped doing that, at least for a very long time. After that, we get into the pre-title sequence. It's visually stunning, and the song "You Only Live Twice" is sung by Nancy Sinatra. Now, I can't deny that this song is just beautiful to listen to, but it's not my kind of Bond song, I must be honest. Those slow, melody, calmful, that is not my type of Bond song. I like one with a bit more adventure, and I guess a little bit of rock, a little bit of an edge. But I can't deny it is nice and soothing. And yeah, but the visuals as that song is played is absolutely stunning, and I just like how it has that. It really captures like that Oriental feel, Japan and all that, and I absolutely love that. After that's over, we then cut to a Navy funeral on a Navy ship, and it's presumably Bond's body. We then see a person secretly overlooking the whole thing, and in the newspaper it's revealed that the Bond is dead. After the funeral, after Bond's body has been thrown into the ocean, which is a traditional Navy thing, the body is then recovered by two divers. They then take the supposed corpse into a submarine, and just as that happens, they open up the wrapping, the casting, and it's revealed that Bond is actually alive. Connery does a little slight remark of request permission to come aboard. It's a little joke, permission granted, thank you. It's sort of, naval thing, but it's also kind of fun, a little tongue-in-cheek, at least to me. Here, I just want to point out something. For the rest of the film, at least until the ending, I kind of feel Connery's acting to be where he's now bored. Again, like I said in the background, by this point, Connery was fed up with the role. And by this point, he was just done and said this would be his last film. But as we know, it technically isn't. We'll get to more of that in another review. But I do like the scene where it turns out that Miss Moneypenny and Emma on the submarine own in their own special office. It's then revealed we get a nice Moneypenny scene with Bond, like we always do, and of course the usual M briefing. We then find out the whole thing was set up so Bond could go further underground, making the enemies feel that he's dead. It's then revealed that the reason why they want this because they believe that the rocket that was stolen in the beginning of the movie is in Japan, but they don't know where. But they have to find this quick because the Americans plan to launch another rocket up into space, and so do the British, and so do the Russians way before the Americans do. So they got to act fast and find out who's doing this and why. And essentially, you could figure out and also like how the plot is a little bit of a mystery as why is someone doing this. But we can see the tensions rising between the two countries, the Americans and the Russians. So I really like that. Bond is then told to meet a contact in China and is given a special passcode by Moneypenny. I love you. Again, I think Ms. Moneypenny got a little bit of fun out of that one. We also heard a little bit about Bond's background. When he's given this book about, how to speak fluently in Japan, he said that he took a lesson like this at Cambridge. Again, a little bit of history to the character. Also with the Navy uniform, again, is very closely to the novel that Bond was recruited into MI6 via the Navy. And also another thing, Ian Fleming was a Navy officer. So a little tie into him as well, I really like. After that, he is ejected from the submarine and is in Japan. Now, for the rest of this film, Bond is in the Japan setting in the late 60s, and I really do like they take advantage of the whole place. The location, it's breathtaking, the culture. We get to see Bond in a sumo, watching sumo wrestlers, where he meets the first Bond girl of the movie. Again, they kind of share it. Share the title of Bond girl, and if I could be honest, going forth, this film for me doesn't have very memorable Bond girls, and it's certainly not my favorite. Anyway, the Bond girl we meet first is Aki, where Bond uses the passcode, and then she then takes him to a sort of, I guess you could say, hotel, where he meets Henderson, which turns out to be a Bond ally and MI6 operative. I like Charles Gray's performance here. He plays it straight, but has a likable feel, and I just really like the whole thing. And just as that's happening, he then confirms the theory that Japan definitely, or at least was stolen from Japan. Not that the Japan government had any involvement, but definitely that Russia didn't, nor Japan. The rocket was definitely stolen and is definitely in Japan, but we don't know where. And just as he's about to reveal that who he suspects was possibly responsible for the theft, he is silently killed in a very almost cartoony way. Basically, he's standing up against a wall, which is made out of paper as he's saying this, and gets stabbed in the back. After Bond finds out he's dead, he quickly rushes out and finds the guy that stabbed him and gets into a fight with him, only to swiftly kill him. He then sees the sumo wrestler that I mentioned earlier, or at least, the wrestler that is technically, I think, should have been the henchman in the car. He then dresses up like the thug he killed and quickly gets in the car, pretending he's injured, and the guy takes him essentially to base. We then get to a sort of corporate building owned by Mr. Osato. Of course, it's not revealed that he owns the place, but it's definitely him. But it's definitely his building, as we're later see in the movie. After Bond eventually has his cover blown with the wrestler, he then gets to a fight. Now, I love the choreography of the fight, and I just really, really wish this guy should have been the main henchman, not Hans. I also like how Bond is using everything around him to take him down. And I also like how this guy just doesn't give up. He then, of course, gets defeated, and he gets defeated quite easily, and Bond tries to hide the body in a essentially refrigerator, and drinks a thing of vodka, only to find out it's Siamese vodka, not that good. He then finds a safe and uses one of his gadgets to open it. And there's a bit of tension as he can hear guards slowly coming towards the room, so he has to quickly do this. And just as it almost sounds like they're about to enter, the guards quickly turn away. Bond then opens the safe, but just as he does, an alarm goes off. He gets the paper that he needs and quickly gets the hell out of there whilst he's being chased by security guards. And as he gets outside the building, he then runs into Aki again. Gets into her car and they drive off. Bond is now fed up and wondering what the hell she's after. They then stop at a nearby location where she runs and Bond chases her, eventually ending up falling into a trap and falling into a room where he meets Tanaka, Tiger, who, believe it or not, Anderson actually revealed his name in the meeting, saying that he will get, in order to help her with this investigation, he needs to, work with Tanaka, head of the, Japanese Secret Service. Automatically, he's a pretty likable character. He's always saying Bond-san. He clearly has a respect for Bond, and I think Bond also, in a way, has a bit of respect for him. We then further get to see more of the location. The two also seem to be almost a kind of equal in a way. Tiger is clearly a Japanese agent, sort of like a Bond version if it was Japanese, which I really like. They do more investigating, finding out that that there's a location where the rocket was supposedly taken, and the photo was actually taken by some tourists who ended up killed, realizing that there must be something very important resulting in their deaths. They also find out that the papers Bond has taken reveals a certain chemical that makes rocket fuel, or partly rocket fuel, indicating all that. I also like the underground railway, like their own private train station, the overall location, and of course Tanaka's home. Automatically, I just love the scene, how it plays out, the chemistry between the two are really fantastic. And of course, Bond naturally assumes that only one organization could be smart enough to pull off something like this, and of course, the organization that he suspects is Spectre. They also find out that the corporation is owned by Mr. Osato, and of course asks Tiger if he can prepare an appointment for him tomorrow. Of course, and also if this happens, Bond gets reacquainted with Aki again. Okay, I gotta be honest, the Bond girls in this film are not only are they not at all memorable, they're kind of bland. But at least I liked Aki, at least I could like Aki. And I wish that she was truly the main Bond girl, and I saw no reason to have two Bond girls in the same book, in the same movie. Hell, in the book, the main Bond girl is Kissy Suzuki, but she's relegated to be sort of the last character in the movie, and that kind of took me out, but we'll get to that later when we finish up the plot. After going to Mr. Osato's, business in the morning, undercover, he runs not into Mr. Osato, but Helga, and the two kind of have, and it's a nice little scene, I will admit, and just as he leaves, Mr. Osato orders Helga to have him killed. Just as that, Bond is leaving, and just as about to be killed by some thugs in a car, Aki comes, saves him, and they drive off. I just love the chase. I kind of felt that it ended weirdly with the helicopter coming, taking the thugs and dumping them in the ocean. kind of came out of place, but I can't deny the chase was excitable for a little bit. After that, they make their way to the docks obviously owned by Mr. Ozotto. But just before this happened, Bond talks to Tiger and asks to bring in little Nellie, accompanied by her father. We have no idea what this is, but we'll get to it later in the film. And as they are at the docks, they get attacked by basically all the dock workers who turned out to be pretty much thugs. Anaki escapes, but Bond sort of has a fight and a chase. Now, I just loved this. And I like how they really took advantage of this. The director for this film was Les Gilbert. After Terrence Young had finally done his rung, a Guy Hamilton not wanting to return, they've chosen a very little unknown director. And he brings a lot of the cinemascope and the overall action-packed and more open-world feel to this film, and the films he would do later on in the series. And I absolutely love what he did with this film. The cinematography-wise. Of course, Bond is later captured, interrogated by Helga, and of course, Bond uses his charm to quickly get out of the situation. Now, I gotta admit, this is really, I can see just how bored and just unfocused Connery is with his performance in this film. It kind of goes back and forth whether he is good acting or he's just bored. I also feel that he's slightly no longer as youthful or as kind of good looking anymore. It's kind of losing it a bit, and especially it will be in the later bit of the film. Of course, the charm does not fully work, as Helga does try to kill him by trapping him in a plane, essentially to send him towards his doom. Bond escapes and returns to Tiger's house, where he reveals that the ships have been going to this island and off with huge cargo and little cargo. Realizing that this island must be the key, he then quickly gets his little Nellie, which turns out to be a foldable helicopter, of course, done by Q. And I really like just the helicopter. It has all the gadgets, but it also looks like a child's toy, which I do like how Tiger just pointed out. But it does play useful as he goes to search the island, especially around the volcanoes. More helicopters come, and a helicopter dogfight bursts out. And of course, it's done with the classic Bond theme in the background. It's absolutely a great action scene, and one of the many highlights of the film. After that, Bond is called to return to base, and of course, by this point, the Russians launch their rocket, spaceship up into the sky, whether it is then taken away by the same rocket that stole the Americans. The rocket then makes its way to a volcano, which turns out to be the secret base of the people who've been taking the rocket. And yes, it is Spectre, and we do have Blofeld. And it turns out he is calling the shots, unlike in the other two where he has his main operatives call it. So here he's taking full control and he is operating the whole shtick. Also here we find out that he is working with the Red Chinese government, or at least we're supposed to be, at least two Japanese who are at least in the Japanese government at least. It's then revealed that they have supplied him with all the technology, and of course we then see where Blofeld uses these feed piranhas their lunch as a sort of intimidation tactic, where he asks for his payment in advance. And it turns out that the payment will not go unless the war has broken out between Russia and the United States. After that, he tells them to think it over and brings in Mr. Ozotto and of course Helga, who is petrified. Even though I will admit Helga does feel like a Volpe 2.0, I can't deny that the character is a little bit more vulnerable and more scared, unlike Fiona Volpe, who was more confident and would intimidate others rather than her get intimidated, which I liked about her. But here this makes Helga a little bit different, but I can't feel that she is a copycat clone. And here we get a brief look at Hans, who is essentially Blofeld's number 2, and is a pretty bland and boring character. Blofeld then, well, at least again, Spectre number 1, then reveals that he knows that Bond is alive, courtesy of the man visiting the office is Bond. He asks, have they killed him? Ozotto says that Helga, or number 11, was ordered to kill him, but failed. He then orders them to leave, with Azotto going first and Helga falling behind across a catwalk over the piranhas, which he then pulls a lever, resulting in her falling into the piranha pool, and she gets eaten alive. I actually found this pretty terrifying when I watched this at first, and in a way I still kind of do. It's just so scary. He then orders have Bond be killed now, essentially intimidating Otto so much. And of course he says yes he will, and walks and quickly runs. Bond of course is then delivered to, then of course cut to Bond being essentially to a sort of Japanese monastery, revealing that the Russians not killing the Americans for stealing, and now the Americans will soon be, launching their rocket in a few weeks' time. Realizing this, they have to quickly get on the island, with every man available. Here we get revealed that where Bond is at Tiger's ninja training school. Now, I just love this scene where we get to see all of them do the workout, like the fight, like them practicing their fight scenes, their sword fighting. It's just great, and visually, the yelling of that does get a little bit silly, but it's absolutely great, and I just loved it. And of course, we get to the more modern ninjas, where they see them using like these special rocket guns, rocket cigarettes, and basically this is the army Bond will be fighting with in the climax of the film. So already we are prepared. We are prepared. And of course, then by that point, this is where the film kind of loses me a bit. By this, the Tiger has a plan to train Bond in all the ninja arts, and then they plan to quickly get onto the island. But Bond will go undercover as a Chinaman, as a Japanese fisherman with a wife, an agent he already has on the island. And as he says, she has a face like a pig. I found that, and I just found like he would always say that to him. I just found it funny. Of course, we get the scene where Bond does get transformed into a Japanese man, and it is painfully racist to me. Or at least it just doesn't feel right. Hell, they don't even do a good job at least trying to make him look like a Chinaman. It's just, no. And what makes it worse, they kill Aki by this point in the film, where where Bond has two assassination attempts. One is where they try to kill him, but accidentally get Aki, and one during one of the Chinaman's, one of the training with all of Tiger's ninjas. Okay. Then we get to the wedding scene. Wait, is this on Her Majesty's? No, believe it or not, Bond actually technically got married, but not properly, more like for an undercover mission. So I wouldn't really call it a proper marriage. Overall, we then find out that overall, after that scene, and the bland chemistry between Connery and the character Kissy Suzuki not working well for me, and honestly throughout the film, Bond and her eventually go exploring the caves where they find out people have gotten killed. After they go in the caves to find out there's poison gas, they then dive into the bottom of the water and then come out the other side. They then go searching until they get close to the volcano where Bond was just as the helicopters were attacking. In the beginning of the film. He then finds out that the volcano is actually a fake, not even at all. Realizing that, he then tells her to get Tiger, all the ninjas, and get here quick. And Bond tries his way to find himself into the volcano. Now, I want to point out that the volcano set, just as we saw early in the film and now, is a fantastic, fantastic set. Ken Adams, I think, was the guy that did this, and honestly, this is perhaps one of the most grandest sets in the history of the Bond series, and I kind of wish that in more modern Bond films they've lost the more fantastic element. It's becoming, I understand wanting to become serious, but you're losing the fantastic element, how it's a fantasy. You're supposed to be in this different fantastical world, and I'm hoping No Time to Die will bring Bond back into that realm, but I guess I can't do it anymore as we considered goofy by today's standards. Again, I can see why. After infiltrating the facility, he then rescues the astronauts and goes disguised as one of the Spectre astronauts to go into the space shuttle. And just as he's making his way in the space shuttle, he is then called away, as he was about to go on with his air conditioner. Blofeld is, again, there's a reason why Blofeld is the leader of Spectre. He notices things, and he then brings him to the control station. Of course, Blofeld still has his face hidden behind Hans, and as he orders them to open up the astronaut suit, it's revealed that Bond is inside. Here, and this is it, gentlemen, finally, we get the Blofeld reveal. After 2 films of him being face hidden, and the Spectre organization hinted in the very first, we finally get the infamous reveal. Donald Pleasence reveals his face with that scar down his eye, and he says, "My name is Ernst Stavro Blofeld." Wow, an iconic moment in the series, and finally, Blofeld has his face revealed. Bond finally meets the man who's running the organization. And I find it to be absolutely a fantastic moment. But I want to point out something. Now, if you think about it, the film, I like how they built up Blofeld's reveal, and I thought it was executed perfectly. But we don't get much time with this incarnation. The problem that I think most modern audiences will find with Blofeld is that the characters is always changing looks, and therefore we're changing to a different personality. But to be fair, that is kind of in the books. Blofeld was a chameleon. He's always changing appearances. And I don't mind this look of the character. It's iconic. And I just like how he is bored, and Donald Pleasence has a sort of menace and creepiness and those staring blue eyes. But if I could be honest, I'm kind of upset that we don't get him to be in the role as much. I really wish we could have had Donald Pleasence one more time in the role, but we don't. And that kind of makes me a little bit upset that we don't get that. But anyway, I can't exactly say I'm not happy with it. I am. And here we find out what his plan is. He wants to create a third world war between the United States and Russia. And he used that opportunity to have Spectre then dominate the world. Again, Spectre's overall plan in the whole series was to always have world domination, but they always got involved with whatever criminal activity they could, such as mostly ransom and extortion, basically being their main bread and butter, and also other criminal ventures. But you can really tell that Spectre's going full on, all out for this one. They're putting everything on the line for this plan, which I like. And just as this is happening, Tiger and his men quickly trying to, fight their way into the volcano, although are opposited with other, with the security defenses. I kind of find it weird how Bond got in without tripping the security defenses, but I guess when Bond broke in, I guess it would make sense that they would be more on high alert now, realizing that Bond is in here. And allies might come in too. Tiger, Kissy, and all the rest try to fight their way in, but half of them are getting mowed down on their way in. Bond tries to help by opening up the opening door, and eventually everyone comes in. But again, before that happened, the rocket had finally gone up into space. And it turns out what Blofeld planned to do, as soon as they captured the Americans, they will blow up the spaceship, killing not just their own guys, but also the rival Americans, essentially resulting in a full world war. And just as this happening, there is this huge fight between all of the Spectre goons and all of Tiger and his ninjas. I like how Tiger's getting in on this, and we see that he is a capable fighter and not just the head, which they could have easily just done. But no, I really like how he got involved, and it just made his character all more memorable for me. And as this happened, Blofeld pretty much retreats along with Hans and Azotto. And just as he's planning to escape, he kills Azotto, the cat runs away, and he takes Bond, essentially planning to kill Bond once and for all. But just as he does, Tiger throws a throwing star into his arm, resulting in him missing killing Bond, dropping his gun, and quickly gets away on the conveyor belt, making him the first villain in the series to escape from Bond. Bond realizes that the plan is not finished yet. They have to quickly find their way back into the control center and prevent the shuttle from being captured. As they do, it's a full firefight breakout with Bond making his way eventually into Blofeld's room where the Piranhas is, where he has a fight with Hans, not Jaws, Hans, wins, and Hans gets eaten by piranhas. Connery does have a nice little line though. Bon appetit. And just as he makes his way into the control room, he blows up the space shuttle before it could get to the Americans, resulting in preventing a Third World War and resulting in winning the day. But Blofeld, he's not dead yet. After getting to a secret part of the cave, he then blows up the volcano, and Bond, Tiger, Kissy, and all the ninjas quickly run out quickly before they are killed. My question is, where's the astronauts Bond rescued? Are they dead or running with them? Anyway, I don't know what happened to them. But I like to consider that they also got out as well. Yeah. And just as they do, they make their way to the water, where they're given lifeboats, just like they were in Thunderball. And of course, Bond and Kissy Suzuki get a lifeboat to themselves. Overall, and of course, just as this happened, the volcano explodes where real lava comes out. I don't know how is that possible, but it is. And of course, just as this happened, Bond of course does the usual, you know, with the Bond girl, at least having some time with her. But just as this happens, a submarine emerges with the lifeboat on top of the submarine. And of course, M orders Moneypenny to, I quote, to come down below and report. I don't know if that was an innuendo, but I like how Moneypenny says, "It will be a pleasure, sir." And just as that, the film ends with saying Bond will return in On Her Majesty's Secret Service. Okay, now, I like to consider that all the 60s Bond films were great in their own right and brought something different and interesting to the series. But if I could be honest, the first four are considered classics, or at least great films, or at least culturally significant. This is kind of bland. It's a fun adventure film, don't get me wrong. Liz Gilbert did really well, the cinematography is fantastic, the set is fantastic, and I like how it's over and grand. But it does have a lot of significant value, as it is partly the influence for the Austin Power spoof series. But if I could be quite frank, it's just not that. It kind of loses my interest. And I don't want to say this film is bad. It is good, and I would recommend it's worth a watch. And who knows, you might get more enjoyment out of it than I would. But unlike the first four, where I found all engaging, and yes, they had flaws, but I can't exactly say it is fantastic. It is definitely a good film. And I do love the cinematography, the set designs, Blofeld's famous reveal, and of course Tiger as one of my favorite Bond allies. But it also has some things that are going against it for me. Such as, you have two Bond girls that are essentially supposed to be the main, but aren't that memorable for me. Really, they're not. And also, I really wish that the wrestler that was fighting Bond in the office was really the main henchman of the film instead of Hans. I really found him to be really interesting, or at least captivating. He should have been the main henchman. But of course, that didn't happen. Also, I kind of find Helga just to be a bland Volpe 2.0, although I will admit she does have a bit of her own character traits. She ain't all that memorable. Also, I kind of wish that after this, Donald Pleasance would at least come back for the role of Blofeld, at least in a different film. Maybe Diamonds. He should have returned as that incarnation, but no, we don't get that. And yeah, also Connery's acting is he's almost bored. Though I understand why. He's a very private person, and during the filming of this, you know, the media was around him, and he wanted privacy. And again, I understand that, and I hopefully that he did. But honestly, I kind of felt that his just acting was off, and he was slowly aging. He was no more young. He was no more of that handsome, suave youthfulness. And also the chemistry between his leading ladies, I think he didn't really have much chemistry with these ladies, to be quite frank. Overall, I can't exactly say that this is a bad film. It is a good film, but I can't exactly put it on high, you know, mantles like the other four were. However, I do recommend giving it a watch. Now this film is something that's not going to be in my top 10. However, maybe somewhere between 20 to 11, yes. And it is a okay film and a good film. I can't exactly say it's one of the worst the series had to offer. It's not. And I do really believe it definitely deserved its place in being in what is the Bond golden age of films. And I do like it is different. And Les Gilbert really did his own directorial debut and did it differently, managed to stand out amongst the crowd. But I can't exactly say that this is a really great film. And it's also the prototype for another film he would do later on in the series, as the elements for this film kind of get repeated a lot in his other Bond films. But that's that. That's it. That's my review of You Only Live Twice. And a good, okay Bond film, but nothing I would consider absolute classic. But it is definitely an enjoyable film nonetheless. And the score, even though not my personal favorite, I can't exactly deny I can't exactly say I hate it. Now, ladies and gentlemen, join us next week as we review another Bond film, 1969's On Her Majesty's Secret Service. And heads up, this is my favorite, and we'll get more to that when we review it. So until next time, this has been The Hour, the Steven Hour. So long for now, and have a good day.